All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Marissa, are we good to go?
Yeah, live and ready.
Great. Good morning, everybody. For those of you who are joining us, my name is Richard Cherry. I'm the VP of Global Marketing here at Kangaroo Time, and I'm joined by Aileen and Alyssa from Imagination Station to talk about career progression and succession planning and everything sort of staff, employee, and everything in between if we decide to go that way. So this is more of a discussion panel structure, not necessarily any PowerPoints, but more of just a conversation. Before we jump in, just a little bit of housekeeping. So this session is being recorded. We're going to share this out with you all afterwards. For any questions, comments, please put them in the chat. We will review that at the end of the conversation here today. And what else? Anything else? So I think that's about it. So just to kind of kick us off, again, my name is Rich Sherry. Very happy to be here to kick it over to our guests to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit more about their role and Imagination Station. So Alyssa, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for us?
Sure. Hello, everybody. I'm Alyssa. I am the operations manager for Imagination Station Childcare and Preschool. We've been around for about 12 years now. We do lots of things with lots of little children. We have 6 centers across Western New York, Leroy, Batavia, Alden, Elma, Lancaster, and Clarence. We also house a UPK program within our one of our centers, so we do lots of fun stuff. We pride ourselves on being a safe, educational, and professional environment for our kiddos to come to and for our staff to be in. So yeah, great stuff.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Aileen. I work with Alyssa, and I am the program coordinator and curriculum specialist. I have a probably familiar story in early childhood. I grew up with a mom doing in-home care. I then started babysitting, and then I started forming great relationships with those families and those kiddos. So that led me to work in childcare, become a director, and now I work with our teachers at all of our centers. I work on programming, curriculum, helping them just really navigate their days.
Awesome. Thank you both for being here. And I think one of the things for additional context, we met actually at Kangaroo Time, our user conference Bounce back in the summer. And I think you all were peacefully eating lunch and I joined you at the table and just started talking about sort of stuff, if you will. And it came up that you were recently both promoted. And there was a lot of conversation around, both the positive energy around the promotion, but then you need to start talking about, backfilling that sort of reality and shifting your approach to the role and how you think about the day-to-day versus a bit further on in the future. And that's where this sort of idea came from, to hop on and just continue to have this conversation. There's some things that we were talking about here before we kicked off. That I'd love to just get some updates from you on as well as you continue to evolve your practice. So we're going to go ahead and jump in. Just a little bit Kangaroo Time. One of the things we try to do is our mission is to advance childcare forward, and we're excited to be here to talk about this very relevant topic that everybody is dealing with out there, and hopefully at the end of this, you take some tips, tricks, or things back with you all in your practice to put into use, either immediately or start to question or approach things a little bit differently to ultimately improve your situation out there. So first and foremost, one of the things that we want to dive into here, and I know there was a little bit of context around Imagination Station, but could you both kind of let us know a little bit about the current situation at Imagination Station through the staffing and talent lens, if you will?
Yeah, so we're pretty much always hiring. Just as, I think most centers, if not all, you always have to be ahead of the game. It's just what it is, what it is. We're in a high turnover industry, like so many other industries. And especially post-pandemic, people are very fluid in their jobs. They want something that is meaningful for them, but also, pays the bills, of course. So we're fortunate that we have an HR generalist who does most of our staffing, like onboarding and interviewing and all that stuff. It's pretty much a full-time position for her at this point, because like I said, we always want to make sure that we're ahead of the game so that we're not in a situation where we might have to consider like closing a classroom down for a month. We've learned about, other centers. We never want to have to like put our families through something like that.
Yeah, I think another thing, just to jump off what Alyssa said, that we're seeing with the staffing now is that it's always been a turnover industry. But now we're seeing that we have we have an increase in less experienced staff. Not necessarily a bad thing, I think after with the pandemic, a lot of people left the industry for various stressors and reasons. But now we have the opportunity of new people who want to explore the industry and think it might be the right fit for them. Maybe they left their other job. So we're definitely seeing a shift in how we're training and also with how we're hiring.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's a great less experienced staff on board. We'll dig into that a little bit further, but one of the things that we were, just curious about on a more specific, I don't want to call it personal level, but like we had mentioned, or in our initial conversation about your particular career path at Imagination Station, right? Can you both provide a little bit of a backdrop or context around sort of your personal career progression at, either early childhood or more specifically at Imagination Station?
Sure. Like I said, I started, just babysitting, helping my mom. But then I really, developed a love for early childhood. I majored in psychology and early childhood in college because I found that I really love learning about the brain and how kids work, because that all translate into how we can then help our teachers within the classroom. If we understand children better, we can do better for them. So I came on board with Imagination Station in 2019, and I had the unique opportunity of opening our center in Lancaster. It's on the Greenfields campus in Lancaster. So we are on an assisted living campus, which the idea was to provide a lot of unique intergenerational activities across campus. 5 months later, COVID hit. We had spent 5 months enrolling, filling up the center, and then COVID hit. We had to obviously quickly stop all of those fun activities, which really took away, a big chunk of our programming and our why we came each day. So we had to adapt all through COVID. Lancaster Center stayed open. We didn't close. We stayed open and worked all through COVID. Alyssa also worked at one of our centers through COVID, and we really had to adapt and stay flexible. It was a challenging time where you really had to dig deep to find your joy in work. You had to find your why because a lot of it was taken from you. We also had to, there was no room for negativity. There's no room for negativity in this field. During COVID, we had a lot of new processes and routines that were required upon us. And when you have a room full of 2-year-olds, that's not so easy. It's easy on paper, not so easy in practice.
Right.
But we just really found different ways to adapt and work within the new challenges.
That's great.
Yeah, so for me, just to kind of give a little bit more background on me, like Aileen, always, kind of grew up around working with kids, teaching. I didn't necessarily come from like the child care background, but I was a teacher. I ran my own music lesson business, and then I ran a kinder music business. So I was always around little ones, you know, with on the music side of things. You know, specifically with kinder music, I was working, you know, newborn up to 5-year-olds, nourishing the brain through music and movement. And transitioning into childcare, there's a lot of that goes on in the day, right? So I wanted to, my reasoning in moving towards childcare in general, away from just specifically music, was I wanted to make a bigger impact on my local community. And then now, as I've moved from a director into operations manager, like my circle of people have grown instantaneously. You know, I went from serving, you know, like, you know, 70 to 90 families to now like our whole company of families. And so just for a goal of mine through life is to have a bigger impact on more people. This has allowed me to do that. It has been challenging. There's always bumps in the road.
Sure.
But every kind of situation you're put in is always a learning opportunity, whether it's a positive one or a negative one. We learned a lot about how to pivot and be flexible during the whole COVID thing, as Aileen said. Specifically for me, I went from working at my nice little happy center to then, being moved around. And then I worked at 3 of our other centers during that time. While it was really tough, it was eye-opening because I got to see how we operate as a company. And when I did that, I just knew that is something that I wanted to move forward with. I absolutely love the experience. So while everybody else was at home during those times, I was working harder than I ever had. But it truly, fueled to where I am now. So I couldn't be more grateful for that.
Yeah, and I think you both mentioned this a little bit around the growth opportunity and sort of the attitude going into it all, which is, what can I learn from this, even if it's in a challenging situation? And it's exciting to hear that, at Imagination Station, those opportunities are there and exist, right? Because it keeps you all both, as an example of you both, engaged and ready and just remembering your why. So that's excellent. I think one of the things that we were talking about and wanted to dig a little bit more into is around sort of the change. You mentioned it a little bit, Alyssa, in your last comment there around, you went from, there's always evolution in a career path. And I would say, you're going from single center to multi-center, just seeing sort of how different businesses operate. And, Aileen, you've certainly got exposure in this level as well. And then you've moved into your roles today, right? And sort of that scope has changed. So, throughout the process, when the scope changed, what are some of the things that, I'll call them challenges, or maybe rephrase to opportunities that you sort of looked at? What were some of those surprises, those opportunities for you to continue to learn and grow in your role and in your career at Imagination Station when you both moved into your new roles?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things was going from, like I kind of said, like managing one center to now leading 6 centers. It's a big undergoing, and it's certainly not something that just happens overnight. I've been in my position now for a year, and I don't even want to say I'm comfortable at this point, because I don't think I really am, because there's always new challenges being thrown my way. So that was certainly one of the biggest challenges that I kind of knew, going in. Something else, like, not to toot our own horns, but we moved out of our positions. So now then our positions were vacant, and we need to fill those positions. And I can say now, like after a year of it, I feel like we're probably settled into those, our replacements, quote unquote. It took a few different people. It is what it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, it took, just as going back, as we were saying, we're having a lot of some less experienced staff come on in. It's the same with director applicants. You're not seeing that same level of experience, there is some, but you're just not seeing it across the board, I think. So, we are also looking for ways to promote within, just like I said, we're never done hiring. We are still looking for ways to, grow our admin team with that as well. But yeah, it is a challenge, when we left our centers, to find someone that to help that transition, because it's not just managing people, you're leading a culture in that center. Any director knows that you steer the ship, you set the tone, you set the culture, and your people will follow you then when you have the right culture, and your parents will follow you. So that's something that is easier said than done, as all directors know.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't think people truly understand what being a director means.
Mhm.
A lot of people view it as like, oh, you're the principal of the center. Yep. And you're also the nurse, and you're the cook, and
Therapist.
like your finance, your therapist, like you wear so
Yeah.
many hats, that it takes a special person to fill that role. And for us, it took a little bit of time, but like I
Yeah.
said, hopefully we found, the good ones.
Yeah. Another challenge is, as Alyssa said, your circle grows from 1 center to 6 centers, which is great. I love working with all of our directors. We have such a great team of directors, and I love working with all of the staff. But then all of a sudden it's, you now have 6 babies to care for instead of 1. So, we had lots of emails going early this morning because I think we all woke up and had ideas pop in our heads. And, directors know you have that level of dedication to your center that when that moment, that thought pops up, you take action right away. So yeah, we just have it times 6 now.
Yeah, I bet. And one of the things, and I'm curious, about a year in the role, roughly, if you're reflecting back on even the immediacy of moving up or some of those challenges, what are some of the personal approaches that you both took to adapt, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So whenever I go into a center, I make a point to go in and introduce myself to a new face. I want them to know who I am. I want to have a personal relationship with them. I don't want them to view us as like, oh, it's like scary admin, corporate, whatever, That's not who we are. That's not who we are as people. Anybody that, knows us knows that we're, goofballs and like, we have fun. That's, there's a reason why we're in the childcare industry,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We're not these like stoic, so I want to get to know like our frontline staff. Ultimately, they're the face of the company because they're working, with our parents and with our kiddos. So that's something that I personally have made sure that I do every time I walk into a center.
That's great. I think that's so important to put a face to a name, right? And a little bit of a personality there too. Eileen, any thoughts, personal approach?
Well, just to jump off of that, more specifically, to go off of what Alyssa said, another step that we took, because we do now have this team of admin staff that is here for support. And we want it to be known why we're there. So all of our new employees do go through an orientation process, and part of that includes an orientation video. That does include a little video blurb from all of us saying who we are and what we do, so that when we do walk into a center and introduce ourselves to a new employee, they'll say, oh, I saw you on the training video. Yes, I already can now connect you, and I go, yep, that was me changing the diaper with the baby doll, and we can instantly start to form a relationship with those employees. what we do is so relationship based.
Mhm.
And, you know, with not just caring with the kids, but with our interactions with staff and parents. And this is a challenging job day in and day out. Kids are never the same 2 days in a row. So new challenges present itself. So, you know, forming relationships has been something that I've tried many approaches with, because now I'm not just trying to form relationships with my core group of staff that I'm with 40 hours a week, but with, gosh, I don't even know how many people we have in the company, but with 6 different centers. And I want to have such that tight relationship with all of them. We do have a staff Facebook page that we utilize to spread ideas. I do little videos and share ideas and knowledge. And we just try to make it, you know, a professional, safe place for staff to share ideas and come together and form that culture that we're really seeking within the company.
Do you see a lot of adoption with I'm just curious on the Facebook page, right? It's more of a private group, I'd imagine. You see a lot of adoption there, a lot of sort of momentum?
Yeah. You know, we tend to see, you know, if one teacher posts an art activity Monday, Thursday, Friday, when I'm visiting other centers, I see that art activity repeat itself. And that's what the industry is all about, sharing ideas. We're constantly learning more about children and how we can serve our families better. You know, this isn't an industry of many secrets, you know, there's very few of them. So we want to share, because when one of us succeeds, we all succeed. You know, when one toddler room in a center succeeds and shares that, our whole company can adopt that and succeed as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I, you know, just kind of digging into the, let's call it visibility of movement, right? And the value of demonstrating to other people that there's room to continue to grow within an organization. So if you're thinking about it, this question's a bit off script, so not too far. If you're thinking about the caliber of conversation and sort of the reaction or the feedback that you're getting from your group, like how has that changed? Are there career conversations like that you've had before that have since changed since you've gone into your role? I'm just curious, sort of the ripple effect of demonstrating to a broader organization that there's growth, there's opportunity, and there's movement within the organization, and sort of how you've seen that come to life. I don't know, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think, you know, we onboard, ideally you have a lead, like a lead and assistant in a classroom, right? I think we have now more than ever assistants who are interested and have vocalized their, you know, interest in becoming a lead and, you know, doing the CDA training. And I think part of that is from like the Facebook group. It's from us being in the centers and talking about that, acknowledging, rewarding, you know, in the classrooms. You know, social media obviously is wonderful for a lot of things. And if anything, the sharing of the ideas on there, and it's obviously our industry is mostly, you know, female driven. It's just, it's a great way to support one another and lift each other up. And I certainly, you know, I would not say that it doesn't have an effect on people wanting to better themselves.
Yeah, that's great. And it's great to demonstrate that again. I keep coming back to this point of it's always good to just have visibility on actual movement, right? At the end of the day, we were talking before we sort of kicked off the conversation here around some recent evolutions, even since our last conversation at Bounce. And I was wondering if you can sort of dive into that that facet of the operation, that new role that we were discussing.
Sure. So we have, since the conference, we have developed a new role within the company. The name we actually used from one of the series at the conference that, you know, talked about growth within your company and different, maybe looking for a creative way that you can promote within your company, within your center. So we have a new role, and it's called a program lead. And it will be essentially a floater teacher that will push into classrooms, and they'll be counted in ratio. And they will work within different classrooms that need that extra support. Going back to what we were saying, that the new norm is that you have a lot of green employees, and it presents a lot of new opportunities because, as Alyssa said, these employees, they're eager to learn, right? They want to learn it all because it's new to them, and you can present it in an exciting way and they'll just eat it up. But the struggle with that is that we then have, a handful of classrooms across the company that are saying, Aileen, can you come work with this teacher? Aileen, can you come in and work with that teacher?
Yeah.
And when we coach and when we mentor teachers in the center, in the classroom, we want to always try and do it in real time. We need to learn routines in the classroom with the children, because theory and practice in early childhood can look very differently when you throw in 10 2-year-olds. So I always try and coach, within the classroom, but that's something that you can't always rush. If you're working on mealtime routines or circle time routines, you need to be there start to finish so that they can see that process. Directors have the best intentions, but then the phone rings, another classroom calls, the cook calls you, things come up in the center. Right. So that's where we got this idea for a program lead. When we were just talking, realizing that there's a greater need within the center beyond my role. So this program lead, she actually starts next week. We're so excited. She will really be an asset to the company in helping to spread those ideas, trickle that knowledge down. If she, the goal is maybe this program lead works in one classroom for maybe a week or two. And during that time period, she works with maybe 3, 4, 5 different teachers, all within the same age group, because our centers have 2, 3 toddler classrooms. And then when she leaves, the whole toddler team has one consistent message, one consistent, philosophy presented to them, and they've worked as a group. So they have that teamwork instilled within them. And then they'll be able to keep growing with that and just really take that momentum and go running with it. So that's our new goal.
Yeah.
And then, in addition to everything that Aileen is saying she's going to do, she's going to have her work cut out for her. She's also going to be working on the director side of things too. Yes. So she's going to be trained as a director as well. So she can truly see both sides of it. She sees like the admin level of it and the teacher level of it, because she needs to be able to identify problems as a leader, and then implement them in the classroom. So to do that, we are treating her as a director. So she too can, if we have directors out, on vacation or whatever, she can step into that role. And she knows exactly what's going on in that center because she's already been to that center doing those program, lead duties as well. So it's a big role, but we're excited to kind of craft it and, see what it brings us.
Yeah, we're gonna have to touch base in a little while and see if I'm very, very sure it will be a successful endeavor, no doubt. But interested in seeing how it goes. I think going back to sort of the premise of this conversation today around succession planning, right, and sort of career pathways. It sounds like that particular role, granted, she doesn't start for another week, but the idea and the theory behind that role is not only sort of a utility person, but somebody who can certainly step into a director role if something happens, or, and then there would be that sort of domino effect of somebody moving into that utility role as well. So that's great to hear, thinking about that, which is great. So this has been absolutely fantastic. I think, we've touched on a lot of things. One of the things that I always like to end with, but before I do that, any other thoughts about your, personal experience from an evolution standpoint, or, well, maybe let me just ask, in closing, rather, any words of wisdom? I'm not limited to the actual word count, if you will, but I always like to end conversations like, hey, if you're talking to a colleague, they're just getting into it, they're in a similar situation, or you've been through it and you want to help alleviate some of that stress that you've experienced, like, what are some words of wisdom that you would leave with some folks based on both of your personal experience?
Yeah.
You want to start, Aileen?
I'll start. Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I know, a lot of big thoughts, right? One thing is that there's always been challenges with our industry, post-pandemic and staffing. There's bound to be new challenges. You have to, it's not a matter of if, but when you'll face those challenges and address the problem head on. Once you find the problem, like address it immediately. You have to take action for your families. We've had to raise rates at our centers, but it's for the families. We tell them it's so that we can put quality, and invest back into the program for you. So don't think that your families aren't going to support you. They want you to succeed. They need you to succeed. If we don't go to work, no one goes to work, right? So you get creative, be ready to pivot, and just keep that attitude of, finding something that will work. A lot of times people say, well, this won't work. Well, that won't work. Keep trying, keep trying. That's what we do every single day. And we don't know either, but we're just going to keep going because really failure is not an option. It's not an option to let down our families, let our teachers down, let our communities down. And that's why we're in it. Sometimes when you say it out loud, why do we do what we do? That's why it's for our communities.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah, everything times 2 with me on that. It really is, you can't be in this industry for the money. It's an industry of passion and love and drive to do better and to make an impact on a child. And you have to remember that there's always going to be hard days. You have to go back to your why, you have to do a lot of reflection. That's a really big piece of advice I would have for people is just reflect, because like Aileen said, we try all kinds of things and some of them work, some of them don't. But if you don't reflect and say, well, part of it worked and part of it didn't, we're going to take the part that worked, right?
Mm-hmm.
And build on that and communicate with one another. It's constant communication with one another, and not even, with just an Imagination Station, but our whole early childhood education, community. We're all there for one another. And, I saw it at the conference, one of the speakers commented and said, we're among the nicest people in the world. Nobody's going to kind of keep anything really secret. Everybody, we all want each other to succeed, and it's power in numbers. And I think the more that we bring awareness and talk about it and, just keep everybody in the loop on it, we're going to see this drive towards, the direction that we want it to go. So.
Excellent. Yeah. And there's advantages to going second there. That times 2. I've used that move several times. So I respect that. No, thank you both for spending some time just talking through this, continuing that conversation and updating us on how it's even evolved since the summer. And it's exciting to see that progress and how Imagination Station, yourselves included, the ownership, the organization continues to invest in the talent that ultimately drives the business forward and allows you all to focus on, the development of your children, right? What matters most at the end of the day. So, Marissa,
Yes.
Any sort of questions that have come in?
Yeah, we have a few questions. If anyone has any more, you can just put them in the chat or the Q&A. But to kick us off, the first one is, where and how do you find staff or talent?
Everywhere.
Yeah, literally.
We've done open interviews. We're on all of the Indeeds and things like that online. We've done good old newspaper, hanging up signs throughout community boards, things like that. Literally everything.
Another avenue is, word of mouth with our employees, offering a bonus if they refer someone. And then whenever we can, have the opportunity to promote within, we try and do that too, and mentor them.
Great. Yeah, those are some good ones. I've also heard before people advertising at colleges and local schools, people coming out of there, so that's good. Specifically,
As a parent, I've been asked for some recruiting as well. So
there you
yeah,
go, some parents. With
Yeah,
your program
I mean,
lead, go for it.
yeah, we've social media is big too, looking like on mom groups, things like that, Buffalo, New York moms, I think it is, looking for, maybe moms that are, wanting to snuggle babies. They miss, their kids are growing up and
Yeah,
they
or
want some babies to
retirees.
snuggle or retire. Yep, exactly. We've had, a few of those candidates come along. So
who doesn't like to snuggle a baby,
Exactly. Yeah, those are great. So next question, do you guys ever ask for feedback from your staff?
Yes. So just as we offer feedback to employees, we also ask for feedback from them. A specific thing that our HR generalist does is she'll go in and visit with employees, after maybe 30, 60, 90 days, something like that, to see how, do a check-in with them, see how things are going, ask them, how did the onboarding process go? Do you feel like you're being trained adequately? We have all these steps in place, but ultimately we needed to know that they're being, utilized and stuff. So that's, one specific way that we, get feedback from teachers. And, we have an evaluation process too, at a 3-month and a year. So it's a very just open conversation between the director and the employee where they can speak open and honestly, just about anything. And that's a great time for the director to get feedback from, their staff as well.
Great. And last one here. So what are some of your future plans to adapt to this workforce?
We don't know, I guess. We'll find out. We'll find out, I guess. I think, one of the things that we are still working on is thinking about how we train people and how we onboard. I think that's still a process that's evolving a bit. We've included, we've always had an orientation process where they come to our admin center and they do their paperwork, and there's an orientation video that shows our faces and stuff. And then their first day of work, they come in and they spend an hour with their director before they're even in a classroom. That's a new part that we've started to adapt to. The director has a little checklist and wants to make sure that we're going over, not just the important things about working in a childcare center, but just other things about working in a building, like where's the bathroom? Where do I put my lunch? Where's the time clock? How's that work? Things that you want to not have to rush, because we want them to feel welcomed and taken care of a little bit. So that's something that we're still, I think, evolving a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, just in our last, we hold director meetings roughly every 6-ish weeks. Directors come here with our admin and we have about a 5-hour meeting or so. We always do lunch, things like that. There's always some type of team bonding. We did a scavenger hunt last time, whatever, but something that we actually specifically asked for was feedback about our onboarding process with the directors, and, found that we needed to adjust it a little bit. So, we're never opposed to changing and learning and evolving to what works. So I don't know specific processes that, we might have to adapt to in the future, but I think that's something we've become very good at is being flexible and adapting.
Yeah, we know how important it is for employees to want, we know that employees stay because of their bosses. They stay because of the leadership and the management that's in there. So we're constantly self-reflecting on that. And what can we do to make our centers more welcoming for staff? So while we don't always have those answers, we're kind of brainstorming a little bit and taking ideas from each other. A center did a scavenger hunt that was super fun for their staff. Let's do it company-wide then, next month or something. We want it to be a place where people want they enjoy work, and you have to really look within your company and see what culture you're driving. And sometimes we have to take a step back and shift our approach for that when we see what we're thinking and what we're seeing isn't aligning, with our culture.
True. Yeah, culture is just so important. So that looks like all the questions we had. Any last minute ones, feel free to ask. But otherwise, I'll hand it back over to Rich.
Yeah, thanks, Marissa, for taking us through those. And I was just thinking about culture as well, and I'm glad you mentioned that at the end, right? It sounds like you all are laser focused on that, making sure the right folks are joining the organization. You're having all the right conversations, so that's fantastic. I think, again, just one last thank you to you both for allowing us to continue to have this conversation, important conversation, especially from your perspective, because you all have demonstrated success in this particular area, not only personally for both of you on the career side of things, but also as an organization. So I think it's fantastic. Thank you again. And, in the spirit of community and a collective success that was mentioned here, like we at Kangaroo Time, and we have much more of this type of content. We have free template guides, anything that we could do to help in this particular space. We certainly encourage you to lean on us or anybody out there to help you kind of succeed in your role and your job. But with that, thank you again, everybody, for joining us, and specifically to Aileen and Alyssa from Imagination Station. And we'll have a great day. Thanks again.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.